I'm feeling a bit spicy today and in the mood to rank some of my plants. So in today's video, I'm gonna be showing you all of my anthurium and we're gonna be ranking them from worst to best. I don't have a huge anthurium collection. I have 9 specimens to show you, but I would say that's a pretty decent number. Do let me know in the comments what is your favorite and your least favorite anthurium in your collection. I hope you will enjoy this video, and without further ado, let's get started with the worst anthurium in my collection. The first plant that we're going to be talking about is in a cloche because it's in a rehab situation, and that is my anthurium Queen of Hearts. Now, in theory, I absolutely love this plant. However, the reason why it's at the bottom of my anthurium list is because I have been struggling with this plant ever since I got it. I received it as a pretty mature specimen. It had really beautiful big leaves, but unfortunately it went downhill so quickly. It started rotting and I tried to save it multiple times by removing the rot, doing a hydrogen peroxide soak, repotting it, but to no avail. The plant just kept rotting and rotting and rotting. So I decided that I'm just gonna chop off all of the roots, chop off all the rotten stem parts, and that I'm just gonna try and grow this out from like a little stump. I honestly wasn't very positive that this is gonna work because the stump was very, very small. However, as you can see, she is coming back to life. And the issue that I had with this plant is that it just wasn't rooting at all, but I'm happy to report that I can actually see some nice, healthy roots finally emerging on this plant. There's even like a root at the top of the soil because it is obviously in this cloche, which means it's in a high humidity environment. This is truly such a gorgeous, gothic looking anthurium. So I was really excited to add it to my collection, but unfortunately thus far we haven't had the best relationship. But hopefully once she recovers, once she grows a couple more leaves and hopefully a nice, big, robust root system, I'll be able to take her out of the cloche and grow her successfully in ambient. But as of right now, this is the state of this plant. And that's why the anthurium Queen of Heart is at the bottom of my list. We're continuing with the queen theme, and the next plant that we're going to be talking about is my queen anthurium, the anthurium warocquianum. Now, this plant has so much potential. This plant could potentially be my favorite plant in my entire collection, but it is such a diva. This plant gives me nothing but trouble, and it is such a difficult plant. And I knew that. I was well aware that everybody and their mom is struggling with this plant. But I like to be delulu about things, and I like to think that I can grow plants well in ambient conditions. And sometimes it works in my favor and sometimes it doesn't. Now, granted, this is actually the best that this plant has ever looked in my care. This newest leaf is so stunning. It only has the smallest little ding at the top, but other than that, she is beautiful. However, I struggle a lot with keeping these leaves looking nice. This is the previous leaf on the plant, and while it's not horrible, you can see it's already starting to yellow. It already has like a lot of damage, and it's just not looking cute. And all of the previous leaves were doing the same thing, and something about me is that I absolutely hate looking at yellow, damaged, ugly leaves. I know that those leaves still provide energy for the plant, but I just can't deal with that shit. So when I see a yellow damaged leaf, I just chop that shit off. I don't know how people can stand looking at yellow leaves and just like wait for them to fall off naturally. I could never. Especially on a plant like this that has only like a couple of leaves. No, it's just not working for me. So I will probably pretty soon chop this one as well, but it's at the back side of the plant, so it doesn't bother me as much. And like this leaf here is so pretty. So I'm fine with keeping the ugly leaf on the plant a little bit longer. But yeah, this one has just been a struggle. I received it again as a pretty medium-sized plant. It wasn't growing well. It rotted on me a couple of times. I restarted this plant a couple of times. Right now, we're actually in a pretty good spot when it comes to the root situation. Like I can definitely see some very healthy green roots in there. And you will notice that she is dripping. And that is because I realized that this plant needs a water reservoir at all times. This is one of the thirstiest anthuriums in my collection. I would say probably one of the thirstiest plants in my collection. And I try to never let this plant dry out, which is why whenever I water it in place and I leave a pretty good reservoir in there. And so far, that has been the only way that I actually managed to get some nice leaves on this plant. Now, recently in a video, I actually added this collar extension on the pot because the stem was just getting so long. And I hope once that stem starts rooting out, the plant will hopefully have a lot more energy, a lot more roots, and hopefully produce bigger, more beautiful leaves, because I would really love to have a gorgeous, huge queen anthurium. But unfortunately, these are just so susceptible to mechanical damage. And the bigger the leaf is, the bigger the chance for that mechanical damage to occur. So as of right now, I'm just gonna let her do her thing. I'm gonna appreciate her from afar. I try not to touch and mess with this plant a lot. And we will see. Hopefully in the future, she will figure herself out. Again, I am growing all of my plants in ambient conditions, so I know that some of these anthuriums would definitely prefer higher humidity, but she gets what she gets. She lives over here on my Vitsio shelf under Barina T5 grow lights. And yeah, like I mentioned, ambient humidity, which is around 50%. And if this plant ever goes downhill again, I'm just gonna get rid of it and take the hint that I'm just not able to grow a Anthurium warocqueanum. The next plant on the list is gonna be my Anthurium doriakii, which I believe is a crystallinum variety or hybrid. I'm not too certain where this thing comes from, but the reason why this one is a little bit lower on my list is because I have been kind of, I don't want to say struggling with this plant, but it has a tendency to look a little bit ugly. Now, the latest leaf is actually pretty nice, but if you look at it up close, you will see that there is just some damage. And if you look at some of the older leaves, you will also be able to tell that there's just some like yellow spots and some ripping. And then we have this situation. Now, this hole is not the plant's fault. I accidentally vacuumed the plant. That's why that hole is there. But yeah, this plant is cool. I really, really do love it. I especially love the shape of the leaves and how it looks like a little bowl. Absolutely adore that. This plant just kind of sits like a couple of feet away from my north-facing window, and I'm not really paying a lot of attention to it. It's not one that wows me. It's one that grows steadily. It grows well. But I don't know. I think the growth pattern and perhaps just the way that the venation bleeds isn't really for me. I think I figured out that I don't really like this bleedy type of venation. I definitely love it when anthuriums have very crisp, thin venations and markings. However, it is still a very pretty plant and the silver on it is obviously gorgeous, and I haven't had any like real struggles with this plant aside from some like thrip issues, but all of my plants had thrips at some point, so that's not the fault of the plant. But yeah, she's doing fairly well. She is very well rooted. Oh my god, I love showing y'all anthurium roots because they're just so thick and juicy and white. Absolutely love that. So clearly she is happy. I don't know how big this thing can get. It's definitely been sizing up steadily, slowly but steadily. But we'll just see how big this thing can get and how the leaves will look in the long run. Something that I don't necessarily love is just the growth pattern of this plant. It is very compact, but all of the leaves are facing upwards. And now this could also be because I have a grow light hanging above it. But as of right now, the Anthurium doriakii is gonna be in 7th place. Okay, now we're entering into the area of anthuriums that I absolutely love, and I had a really hard time ranking these plants because honestly, all of these could be number one, and I love all of these equally, and I have definitely phases with each of these plants where I love them the most. But anyway, the next plant that we're going to be talking about is going to be my Anthurium wendlingeri, and as you can see, she is quite long, she is quite girthy, and she is also very, very heavy, so I'm going to put her down because I did a workout a couple of hours ago and my arms are hurting. But anyway, the wendlingeri. I love this plant. I love strap-leaved anthuriums, and this one is a really cool one. It's very leathery, it's very thick, and I love it. However, me and this plant have had quite the journey. I have lost so many leaves on this plant. It's not even funny. And most of them were an accident because I used to drop this plant every couple of months. I don't know why, but I just had a phase where I was dropping this plant left, right, and center. So I broke this thing multiple times, but luckily through all of those falls, I've learned to be a lot more careful with this plant. And nowadays, it's growing well, it's growing steadily. However, this is the anthurium that I have the most pest pressure on. This thing constantly has some sort of pest. Obviously, it had thrips, but recently it also had spider mites. So unfortunately, the newest leaf just got very damaged from the spider mites, which really sucks because, you know, you don't get a lot of leaves on a plant once it gets to this size. So every leaf that turns out damaged is kind of a missed opportunity. And on top of that, I also desperately need to repot this plant because it's been in this pot for ages, and as you can see, it is so rooted in here, and this plant would definitely appreciate a bigger home. And if I want to get bigger leaves, I would probably also need to up-pot it. But it's already in such a big pot that I don't think it would fit on my Vitio shelf if it was in a bigger pot. This lives on my Vitio shelf. Again, there is a Barina T5 grow light above it. However, because this is a strap-leaved anthuriums, all of the leaves are actually hanging in front of the shelf, and all of these leaves are only receiving natural light from my north-facing window. And honestly, I think she's happy. I think she's really, really content with that environment. All that being said, I absolutely love strap-leafed anthuriums. The Wendy was on my list for a very long time. I've had this plant now for, I would say like, I don't know, maybe 2-3 years. I think I got this plant before I started YouTube, so I don't have it in a boxing, but it was about ye big when I got it, I believe. So the fact that I've grown it to be so long and so beautiful is an accomplishment, I would say. And I love this plant. This is the Anthurium wendlingeri. I'm really excited to show you this next one because it recently pushed out this gorgeous, huge leaf. Look at that. Oh my god. This is my Anthurium nigrolemonum GG X Forgetii in all of her glory. Wow. It is stunning. Absolutely gorgeous. I love this Anthurium, and I freaking love this latest leaf. It's literally perfect. There isn't a single speck on it. It's beautiful. I got this plant a couple of years ago, I would say. And it was a pretty mature size when I got it, but similar to the Queen of Hearts, it promptly rotted on me. And I had to start it over again from just like a little stump. And the process took quite a long time. But as you can see, it was very well worth it because now I have this stunner of a plant. This plant used to live on my Vitio shelf, but I recently had to move it because, I mean, this leaf would not fit on my Vitio shelf. So I moved it over to like my calyx unit behind me or next to me. And right now it's receiving only natural light, which isn't a lot of light, and I don't know how it's gonna do in the long run, but as of right now, I'm just gonna keep that plant in that spot and see what's gonna happen. I definitely don't expect leaves bigger than this, and I don't expect like a lot of growth in that low light spot. But if it can keep up something like this for like a couple of months, I will be very happy. Another reason why I wanted to move it is because obviously on my Vitio shelf, the Barina lights are on top and the leaves were all facing like this towards the lights, which I don't mind on some of my plants, but on plants like this one, it just wasn't looking very nice. I definitely prefer it when my plants are facing outwards like this leaf over here. I also probably could repot this plant quite soon. As you can see, the root situation is looking gorgeous. And this is how I know that my plants are happy and healthy. Whenever I see this beautiful root system, I know that I'm doing something right. And if you're wondering about the substrate that I use, all of my anthuriums are in Plant Scraper's Supreme Aeroid Mix. I always talk about that aeroid mix because it's my favorite, and clearly my plants love it. I was just so excited to show you this leaf because it's truly beautiful, and I'm just so gagged that I'm able to grow such a beautiful plant. This is the Nigrolaminum GG X Forgetii. You have been staring at this plant this whole time in my background, and I'm not gonna try to bring it any closer because it's heavy as fuck, but this is my Anthurium Mag Lux Hybrid. Now, this plant is definitely a staple in my collection. I've shown this plant plenty of times on my channel, and if you are a returning viewer, you will remember that at one point this plant was even bigger. Now, unfortunately, because I moved recently and because this is such a big plant, I decided to chop back a lot of the leaves. And also a lot of the leaves were just looking ugly and were damaged by thrips. So right now, she only has this big, beautiful leaf, and this leaf did emerge in this environment, in that spot. Again, it's on my calyx unit. It doesn't receive any sort of grow light, maybe a little bit of ambient grow light from the shelf over there, but it's mostly relying on natural light. Would this plant prefer more light? Absolutely. But also, the thing with this plant is that it can get massive. This thing can get even bigger than it is already, and it's already the size of my freaking torso. So I just don't know where I would put it if it got any bigger. So that's why I am on purpose keeping it in that lower light spot, just to hopefully keep it a manageable size. Now, of course, that also means that it does grow a lot slower, but I'm fine with that because, as you can see, even with just one leaf, this plant looks amazing and is a show-stopping piece. And that's something that I love about anthuriums. Unlike some other plants like monsteras or philodendrons, you can chop these back to basically just one leaf and they will still look gorgeous. And this plant is the perfect example of that. I love the texture of this plant, how it's bubbly, the sheen of it, the thickness of it. It's just a beautiful anthurium. I did have quite a bit of struggle when it comes to pests with this anthurium. It's definitely a thrips magnet, but luckily I think I have resolved most of my thrips issues. But other than that, I've never had any like root rot issues with this plant. It usually emerges fairly well, but I definitely stay on top of watering once I see a new leaf coming out, because these leaves are huge and they need a lot of time to actually expand, and during that time a lot of things can go wrong. So I'm definitely giving this plant a little bit more TLC if I notice a new leaf coming out. And also this plant flowers all the time, but I've never done anything with the blooms as of yet. I don't know, I would love to try anthurium hibernation, but also it just seems like such a long process. So as of right now, I am not interested in doing all that, but maybe in the future it would be cool if I could hybridize this plant with some of my other anthuriums. But yeah, this is the Anthurium magnificum luxurians. We are officially entering the top 3 territory. So needless to say, I absolutely love all of the following plants. And the next plant, the plant on number 3, is gonna be my Anthurium pallidiflorum. Now, I actually talked a lot about this plant in my previous videos, so if you haven't seen that one, go and check it out, because it's a cute little video where I show you some of my plants in my collection. But the Anthurium pallidiflorum, again, it's a strap-leaved anthurium. It is easy as all hell. This is the easiest plant or easiest anthurium in my collection. Well, one of the easiest anthuriums in my collection. I virtually have no issues with this plant. It grows well, it emerges well, it doesn't get a lot of mechanical damage. Sometimes it will get a little speckle or like a little hole, but nothing serious. It's beautiful, it's velvety, it's a statement piece on my shelf, lives up there, ambient humidity, regular room temperature, nothing fancy, and it's growing well. I wanted an Anthurium pallidiflorum for such a long time, and I'm so happy that I have one, and I am really looking forward to see where this plant will go, how it's gonna look in a couple of years. I really hope that I'm gonna have this plant when I'm like 60 and it's just gonna be huge, and I'm gonna be over here on YouTube and be like, well, welcome back, kids, look at my pallidiflorum. Hopefully that's gonna happen. But yeah, she is a beautiful plant, super well rooted, absolutely a dream rooter, no issues in the root department, never had any root rot. I did have a couple of episodes of thrips on this plant, but honestly, you can't even see any thrips damage on this plant. That's how amazing the pallidiflorum is, and I just love this plant. It's such a beautiful plant, and honestly, if I could influence you to get any of these anthuriums, I would honestly recommend the pallidiflorum. I think it's such a great beginner anthurium, and it's just such a great, unique staple in any houseplant collection. Most anthuriums look the same, if we're gonna be honest with ourselves, but that's why these strap-leaved anthuriums like the Wendy and the pallidiflorum just stand out so much more. And between those two, I would definitely say that the pallidiflorum wins, because it's a lot easier, and also I actually prefer the velvetiness of the pallidiflorum. I talked about this plant way too much, so I'm just gonna give it another shout out. This is my Anthurium pallidiflorum, and if you don't have one, I highly recommend you go and get one. The sun is going in and out of the clouds, and it's making filming a little bit difficult. But anyway, the second place of my favorite anthuriums goes to my Anthurium Bessier F Papilolaminum hybrid, and I'm just gonna show you this leaf. Just look at it. Just look at it, and that's all you need to know. That's it, folks. That's why I love this plant, because of this leaf. It is beautiful, it's dark, it's velvety, it's veiny. Oh my god, I just love the contrast of the dark foliage with these bright neon green veins. It's such a striking plant in my collection. However, the reason why it's not number 1 on my list is because I did have a little bit of struggle trying to figure out what this plant likes. I've definitely had some leaves that weren't looking that great. I've had some issues on furling. I don't think I ever had any root-related issues, which thank God. But yeah, for example, this leaf over here, which is the oldest leaf, did have some issues unfurling. As you can see, there are some holes. And what I figured out about this plant, and I feel like this is the plant that kind of taught me what I know today about anthuriums, and that is that this plant does not like drying out. This plant loves being consistently moist. This plant loves a swampy type of environment. And actually, I do think I should probably water it. Okay, I got scared a little bit because I didn't see any roots at first, but there definitely are some roots. I've repotted this plant a couple of months ago, so honestly, I'm kind of surprised that it doesn't have more roots, but I will say it's living in a very, very low light spot. It lives on top of my vitro shelf and there are no grow lights or anything over there. So it's relying solely on the natural light from my north facing window. It's holding on to all of its leaves. It's such a statement plant, but because I keep it in such a low light spot, it also hasn't given me a new leaf in months, which is a bummer, but patience is virtue, and I can actually see that the growth point is starting to get a little bit bigger. It's starting to get a little bit red, and hopefully, I don't know if you can see that, hopefully we will get a new leaf from this plant. This plant definitely deserves its spot in my top 3 anthuriums, and I would say that this plant is probably even in the top 10 of my all-time favorite plants. This is the Anthurium Bessier F. Papillilaminum. Last but certainly not least, the #1 spot goes to my Anthurium Ace of Spades Dress Hybrid. And I talk about this plant all the freaking time, so I'm gonna keep this short and sweet and simple. I love this plant. Its dark foliage, the velvetiness, the minimal venation, and the ease of care. This is the easiest anthurium, probably the easiest plant in my collection. Hybrid plants are generally more hardy than their parent plants, but this one takes the cake because it's literally the easiest plant ever. This is like growing a pothos. I do nothing special to it. Every single leaf is perfect. It's a beautiful 360 bush. As with a lot of my other anthuriums, I just make sure to keep up with the watering and never letting this thing dry out, and it is rewarding me with the most beautiful growth ever. There are actually 2 plants in here, which is why it looks so bushy, and like I said, I constantly talk about this plant, and for a good reason. It is truly one of my favorite plants in my collection. It's such a showstopper. Its texture is just so velvety and it's perfect. So that's why currently this is my favorite anthurium. But this list is very interchangeable, and like I've mentioned, the #1 spot or even the top 3 spots constantly rotate. And that's why I love anthuriums in general, because they're just so fun and you never know what's gonna happen. Like every new leaf is an adventure. Every new leaf is sort of unpredictable, where with plants like philodendrons, monsteras, pothos, like you can sort of figure out how the next leaf is gonna look. But with anthuriums, you never know. It might be the most gorgeous, beautiful leaf ever, or it might be a janky mess. And I think both of those are acceptable because one gives you huge reward and the other gives you an opportunity to learn. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. I think I yapped on for way too long. Once again, do let me know what's your favorite and your least favorite anthurium in your collection. And if you have any tips, questions, or whatever regarding some of the plants that I showed you in this video, definitely leave those in the comments as well. I hope you have a super amazing, fabulous, gorgeous day, and I will see you in the next one. Goodbye!